Hi everyone, I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes for people to join and then we'll start. Okay, so let's start. So we'll start with a review of last week. So a text editor is where you do all your coding and all your work, and we are for this course using REPL IT. So I hope everyone has a REPL IT now, and that is where you will be doing all your code. We also started with Hello World, which is the first script that most people write when first using a language. So print Hello World, print Hello Saf, print Hello Jake, it all prints out what's stated in the quote marks, and everything in the quote marks is a string. Then we looked at variables, and variables are store a data type. So we had the variable name equals Charlie, which was a string, the variable age, which equals the integer 27, the variable left to pay, which held the float value of 29.99, and the value has underscore paid, and it has the value of false. But can anyone tell me what data type false is in the chat? Correct, it's a Boolean. So we had some rules for variables. They can be a mix of letters or numbers and some special characters, but they must always start with a letter. Keep them lowercase and use underscores where you would use spaces. And then we had our data types. So we had a string, and a string is just any characters surrounded by quotes. So at the end we've got animal, and it's a string because it's surrounded by quotes. Then we had integer, which is a whole number, a float, which is a decimal number, a Boolean, as you've all just picked out, which can be true or false, and none, which is the absence of a value. And then we looked at escaping. So the /n was a new line, the /t tabbed your line for you, and the / double quote gave you a double quote inside your whole string. So we had two examples. We've got favourite food equals pizza from dough and sauce, and shopping list, which equaled apples, bread, milk and eggs, all on separate lines when you printed it out. Then we had our numerical operators. So we had addition, which is the plus sign, subtraction, which is the minus sign. We had multiplication, which is the star sign, division, which is the slash, exponent, which is also known as to the power of, and you use 2 stars for that, and modulus, which is the percentage sign. And a modulus is the remainder after you divide something. So where we've got at the end 10 modulus 3, what would the answer be if you're using modulus? Correct. So 10 divided by 3 is 9, and you have a 1 remainder. So you're all doing well there, getting it right in the chat. And then we had concatenation, which was the adding of strings. And you can only add strings together. You can't add strings and integers or strings and floats. So you can just, concatenation is just adding strings together. And then we had our order of operations. So this is the way a computer will work out from left to right which numerical operator to execute first. So it'll look at the brackets, then it'll look at exponent, then multiplication and division, and modulus is also at this area, and then addition and subtraction, which is quite similar to what you've learned at school. So instead of BODMAS, it's BEMDAS. So does anyone have any questions right now about last week? Okay, so we haven't got any questions, but again, you can, throughout the lesson today, you can go to sly.do and use the code Python 2020 to go through and ask me any questions. So we'll crack on. So in Python, you use comments, and they're really useful for multiple things. So say I've done a bit of code on the weekend and I'm away, and then Jake picks it up. If I leave some comments, he'll know exactly what my code is doing and why it's doing it. And it's also great for me I can put comments in to see what I'm doing if I come back at a later date. So here's some examples. So the first one, we've got the comment, which you put a hash. If you put a hash in front of any bit of code, it'll turn it into a comment, and what it means is it won't run that code when it's running all your other code. So we've got comment, the total including VAT, and then we have our code underneath. So total equals subtotal plus VAT. So that's just a little explanation as to why. So we've got that little bit of code, and the comment just helpfully tells us why we have that. The second one says has paid equals false, and then we have the comment next to it if the user has paid or not. So you can put it above, you can put it to the left. I prefer putting it above because it's just easy, but easier for me to see it, but again, it's up to you. Then we move on to casting. So casting is where you change one data type into another data type. So when I earlier said about concatenation, you can't add a string to an integer, but there might be times that you want to do that. So what you have to do instead is change the data type from an integer into a string. So the way you do it is you put int, to cast something to an integer, you have int and then brackets and the thing you want to cast. So the first example here, we've got x equals int brackets 1. So x will equal 1 because 1 is already an integer. Then we look at the next one, y equals int brackets 2.6. 2.6 is a float, but because we're casting it to an int, it'll just drop everything after the decimal point and just become an integer. So that's 2. And z equals int brackets string 3. And we're casting to an integer, it'll get rid of the quotes and it'll just make it an integer and make it 3. We can also cast to floats. So if we go through these examples, we've got w equals floats bracket integer 4. Because it's an integer, but we want it to be a float, it'll change it to 4.0. Then we have x equals float 5.6. Because 5.6 is already a float, it'll keep it the same, so it'll just remain 5.6. Then we have y equals float string 6. So because it's a string and we're changing it to a float, it'll change to 6.0. And lastly, we have z equals float bracket string 7.3, and that'll just change it to 7.3 as a float. And lastly, you can cast to strings, and this is important when you want to concatenate, because like I said before, you can't concatenate a string and an integer. So the first one, x equals str brackets string abc, because it's already a bracket, then it's already a string, then it won't change. The next one, y equals string 9, that'll change it to a string instead of an integer. And if you change something to a string, you can add that together to a string. So if you wanted to add a number into your string, which we will do later on, this is how you do it. So this is the important part for casting. And lastly, z equals str brackets 10.0, which we know is a float. That'll change it into the string 10.0. So here is us using concatenation. So you might get this error when you do some of the questions later. So we've got age equals 21, which is an integer, and then we have print UR plus age plus years old, and that's concatenation. So usually you'd hope that would just print out the whole sentence. However, because age is a number, it's an integer, it won't be able to add things together. So what you have to do is you have to cast that age into a string. So you can see here we've cast it by putting str and some brackets around the variable age, and that will now work. So you can just see above here this error. So if you get this error, it's because you haven't casted your integer into a string. Here's another example. You can cast your float into a string and add it to your you can concatenate it to the string. So we've got the total here is 79.99, which is a float. Then you can print your order total is plus, and then you have to use str because you're going to cast it to a string, and then total. So here's an example. So we've got the number of students as 32, the number of girls is 19, and to work out the percentage, it's going to be number of girls divided by number of students times by 100 as an integer, and then the percent of boys, we're going to have the float, and then 100 minus the percentage of girls. But you can cast the different integer float values to a string just by putting str. So even though percent girls and percent boys, one's an integer, one's a float, by using str you can cast them both into strings. So what we can do is, we'll go through some examples toward the end. Okay, so we will now look at length. So length is a function to find out the length of things. So the first one we have here is the variable name equals the string Alice. Name underscore length, so a new variable equals len of name. So the length of the name is 5 letters, so that answer would be 5. So underneath you can see sentence underscore length equals len of the whole string. So you can do it on a variable or you can do it on a string. And if you double check, is the answer right at the end of 13? So it is 13 because we do actually count commas and spaces and punctuation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So when you, for the purpose of length, it will also count your punctuation and your spaces. Next, we'll look at indexing. An index is how you look at each element of your code. So for example, if we look at the string hello, rather than in maths and in English, you usually start at 0. In Python and many programming languages, you start at 0, not 1. So here we have hello, and instead of where you'd say the first letter, the index is 0. So if I say the second letter, the index is 1, what would the fifth letter's index be? Yeah, it'd be 4, because it's index 4, so it's kind of one behind what you would think. So just remember, when you're looking at index, it always starts at 0. So here we have another string, and this one is Charlie. So we've got name equals Charlie, and if we want to find out a particular element of that string, we can use the index. So if we do print name square brackets, so we use square brackets for index and it's 0, it would print C. If we did print name square brackets 1, it would print H. So if I said print bracket name square bracket 4, what would be printed? Correct. So it would be L. So that's how you use the index to find out certain elements. So we can use this for we can use it for strings. So just remember, index starts at 0 and you use your square brackets for your index. So you can use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also use -1 to always find the last letter of your string. So if you have a look here, so these are just showing you 2 different methods of using your index. So if we did print Alice square brackets 4, it's going to give us E. But if we did print Alice -1 in square brackets, it'd also give us the same thing. So -1 is always the last letter or the last character of your string, and then it moves to the left. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if I asked you to print Alice square brackets -4, what would be printed? Correct, it would be L. So you can always have a go at these yourself as well. So you can make sure you declare your variable first. So name equals, and you can put your name. In this case, we've got Dave. So name equals Dave. So if we print name 0, that is always going to print for us the first element of our string. If we print name -1 in square brackets, it's always going to print the last element. So in your REPLs, you can have a go at this with your own name and see how you can always print out the first or the last letter. Next we have input. So input's really good because this is the way that you can actually get an input from your user that you can use in your code. So the first one we've got here is name equals input, what's your name? Print hello plus name. So what I'll do is I'll switch over to my REPL and we'll just test that example. So name equals input. And then I'm going to do a string, and then I'm going to ask the question, what is your name? And an input will always be a string unless you cast it to something else. So when I just put input, it's going to expect a string. And then I'm going to print hello plus name. Because name's a string, because this is what's going to get input here, I can add it together because they're two of the same data type. So if I run that, so it's going to ask me my name, and I can type it in, it'll say hello sir. So again, this is where spaces can be important. You can tidy it up a little bit, and then, so that is how you use input. So now we want to get an integer. So what we do instead is we use the int. So how we casted before, now we're going to put int round input. And that means it will get, instead of getting a string, it'll get a number. So that means we can use that number and do things with it. So first thing we're doing is getting the age. And then underneath we've got the variable age in 10 years. And that we can do age plus 10. Then we're going to print out in 10 years you will be, and then we're casting it again to string age in 10 years. So what we can do is try that out. So I'm just going to show you what happens if I forget to cast this to a string. So I'm going to enter an age, and this is an error you might come across. So it says, can only concatenate string, not int to string. So like I said before, you can only concatenate string to string, not string to integer. And if I just print above, age in 10 years. So when I mentioned comments before, I just want to try print out what the age in 10 years is going to be. I don't want to delete this, so I'm going to just put a hash in front, and as you see, it'll grey it out, and it means it won't run it. So it's going to ask me how old I am, and it equals 25. So now we know that the maths is working. So we can get rid of that. To uncomment, all you do is get rid of the hashtag, and you'll see the colour changes, and then we'll add our str here and run it, and it'll ask again how old I am, and this time it runs. So you just need to make sure that you are casting correctly. Next we have upper and lower. So this is another function, and this will help you format your strings. So if you want it to be all upper or all lower, this is where this comes in handy. So you have name equals Alice, and you can do print name dot upper, and it will change Alice all to upper string. You can do print, and then you can just put the string, and we've got hello in lots of upper and lower case, and dot lower, and it'll print hello. So what we can do, again, we can try this out. And what's important to remember when you're using it, dot upper and dot lower, is you need these brackets here when running this. So let's try that. So we've got name equals Alice. So we can change it to name equals Bob, and it's always going to print in uppercase. Or we can just do whatever string we want. So we can do hello, and then we can do dot lower next to it, and again remember in those brackets, and if we run that we get all in lower. We could put anything we want here and it's just going to put it all into lowercase. So that is upper and lower. So the first one is you're taking a variable. Again, you could even do, we can do an input here. We can ask, what is your name? And whatever the person inputs, we're going to print that out in uppercase. So let's have a look. So it's going to ask me what my name is, and I'm going to write it all in lowercase. And you can see that it prints it all in uppercase for you. So that is using upper and lower. And now we have some examples of putting it all together so we can get. So what I'll do is we'll go through each example. So let's go through this first one. So what we have is we have an input asking what's your first name, we have an input asking what's your last name, and then it's going to calculate the total length of the user's name by using the len function. So we have length equals len f name and len l name, and then what we'll do is we'll print out the length to work out how long this name is going to be. So let's do a first name. So the first name is going to be Josephina, and the last name is going to be Smith, and it's worked out for us that that is 14 letters long. Okay, let's move on to the next example. So now we're going to get the first letters of each part of the name and make them uppercase. And then it's going to work out and then print out for us your full name is, and then the length and letters long. So let's run it. And let's so we're putting in a first name and a last name. It's giving us our initials in upper and the full name of 11 letters long. So this is how we're using all the things we learned from this lesson together. And then the last section of this example is we're going to get the middle letter in the full name as a lowercase string. So the index requires an integer, so we cast to prevent 5 divided by 2 equaling 2.5, and we want it to instead just give us 2. So let's run it again. So we put in full name. And the middle letter of the full name, so if we put the whole name together, the middle letter is going to be C. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few more examples and then we can go to the questions. Okay, so you can get a first name by asking getting an input, and you can do the same thing for a last name. and then we can create a full name by adding them together. We're going to add a space in between so that it is separated. And then we can run that. So we'll do first name, last name, and you can see we need some more spaces, but that's fine, because that's how the best thing with code is you can just keep chopping and changing and editing. Okay, so that's using your input. Again, we can look at using the len, so we could do just print len and then a string you want to find out the length of. And it'll give us 8. But I can also just create a variable called word. I'm going to store Python, and then I'm going to print the length of the word. And if I print that, what number will I get from running this code? So if we run that to check, yeah, you're right, we'd get 6. Okay, let's look at indexing again. So we've got our word, and I'm now going to print the variable -1. And before I run that, what character will that return to me if I do print word -1? Correct, because -1 gives us the last letter. What if I did 0 instead? Yeah, you're right, we would get P. So I can do them underneath each other just to check. And there we get a quick way of getting the first or last letter or character of your string. So remember, if I do .upper, it's going to give me everything in uppercase. If I do .lower, it'll give me everything in lowercase. And we can use our input to find out how old people are, how old people used to be. So we can say input but if we want an integer, we know we have to change this to an int. But I'll show you what happens if you don't do that. So we're going to do age 10 years ago, and we're going to do age -10. And we can print age 10 years ago. And if you get this error, it's because, so if we look at if you ever get a big block of red like this, just slowly go through it and try to work out what the error is. So we can see here the bottom line is saying type error, unsupported operand type for string and int. So what it's telling us there is we're trying to take away 10 from, and what the computer is seeing is, and it doesn't like that. It can't do that. It can't take away a string from an integer from a string. So what we have to do is make sure that we've changed this into an int. And we can run it again. And now it's working. But then if we want to use that bit of math in a full sentence, so we could say 10 years ago you were, and then we try to add age 10 years ago. If I run that last line, will we get an error, or will it print out the sentence I want it to? Okay, you're right with the error. And why are we going to get an error? That's right, it's because it's not a string. So if we run it again, we should hopefully get this error. And you can see we can only concatenate a string, not an integer to a string. So if you're getting this error, look in your code and see what is an integer that you're trying to add to a string. And we can run that again. And it works now. We can also start using this to get do some little calculations. So let's try work out, if you want to know what the VAT is, let's first get the input. So the input but we know that pounds is often a float, so we'll cast this whole thing to a float. So that means if we cast it to a float, we'll be able to use it to do some maths. We know at the moment in the UK that VAT is 20%. So the VAT amount is going to equal the amount divided by 100 times by VAT. And then we can print the VAT amount is plus, and we know we have to cast that. Okay. So let's run that. So I just bought something for £678.23. And it gives us the VAT amount. And as we can see here, it's giving us a lot of zeros and a 2 on the end, which we wouldn't get in shops, but in a later lesson I'll show you how we can round that up so you won't get all that, you just get it to the 2 decimal places you wanted. But if I ever got a question like this, the first thing I'd do was, when I'd written everything out, I would just print out the VAT amount. I like to just check that all the bits of code are working before I make it neat and tidy. So, and once I knew that worked, then I'd be happy to create my string. So as you can see here, Python can be useful when you start doing some more business maths. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to Slido and see if we have any questions. Okay, so whenever I do the equation 5.7 minus 3.4, it's showing up as 2.3000003, but the answer is 2.3. How can I fix it? So we'll look at rounding up in a different lesson. But that is just currently how the computer stores binary, and so yeah, we'll look at it in another lesson. Where are the questions we have to do? Are they the ones in the stream, or do you find the questions on the description of the stream? So every single week the questions are going to be, if you go to Twitch and where you're currently watching the lesson, if you just scroll down, you'll see our questions here. They're going to be here every single week, so that it won't change. So that every week when she wants the lessons, me or Jake usually put the questions on just before the lesson starts, so you have access to them. But that's where they will always be. So apologies, I'm finding it hard to follow this week. Can we slow down slightly, perhaps, please? So the great thing about doing this on Twitch is that you can rewatch the videos as many times as you want. So because we only have an hour, we usually have got quite a bit of content to get through. So what I would do is I would just watch the lessons again. I'd try the questions, see how you're finding them, and then any bit you are stuck on, you can just forward or rewind to that bit of the lesson. Is it not written down like this because print name 1, because it is saying it is an error? So I'm not quite sure. What I can do is I can show you how we do this. So we have to, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a variable of name. If you just did this and you ran it, it wouldn't work because name is not defined. So it doesn't know what it's trying to look for. It doesn't know where the index it's trying to look for. So you have to first define name, and then once you've done that, it'll work. So just make sure that you define the variable that you're trying to print from. So if you change this to Word, you then have to change this to Word. Okay. Whenever you are typing down the examples, I never have another time to copy them down. So again, they're videos, so you can rewind as many times as you need to have a look at them. You go too fast. Again, we only have an hour to get as much content in as we possibly can, and we're doing it on videos that you can play back as many times as you want for this reason. Is there a way to check an input? Example, answer equals input, do you like pizza, yes or no? Could I check the answer? So next week, this is something that we look at. We start looking at if statements, and this would be a perfect example. So what I'll do is next week we'll look at this example of do you like pizza, and you'll be able to see how we can take a yes or no answer. Is there a page with the homework questions on? So if you go onto Twitch, go onto the home section. That's where, so if you click onto videos, these are where the past broadcasts are. If you make sure it goes to past broadcasts. So if you ever, like I was saying, if you need to go back and look at the questions, or if you want to look at some of the code or the practice questions I've done throughout the lesson, this is where you'll find it. So you go onto videos, but then if you want the questions, you click onto home and then scroll down the page and you have all the questions. So we've got week 1 questions here, we've got week 2 questions here, and this is where every week we'll be storing our questions. So where are the questions we have to do? So yep, that should be there. How do you do the uppercase function again? Sorry, so uppercase, you can do 2 ways. So you can do take a word, so say we take the word Python, all in lowercase. We can print the name of the variable and then a dot and then upper, but don't forget you need those brackets on the end. So I'll get rid of the brackets just to show you, and it'll give you some form of error like this, and that is because we've not used this properly. So you put in those brackets and it'll work for you. Again, it's the exact same if you want to do lower. I can also just put in the word here, the string. So if I put the string there, or just loads of letters, any string I want. So that's how upper and lower work. When is a double quote needed? So anytime you want a string, so any characters here, you always have to use quote marks. So if I just put a number without the quote marks, that is an integer. If I put in a decimal, that is a float. As soon as I put quote marks around them, and you'll see the colour change, that is now a string. So anything in quote marks is a string. It can be numbers, it can be letters and numbers, but that is why you need the double quotes, because you're changing something from an integer value, that's now a string, or if you just want to print some characters, that's a string. Is float always one decimal? So float is just a decimal number, so that would be a float. So anything with it doesn't have to just be one, it could be multiple and it'd still be classed as a float. So if you can't get to the questions, just refresh the homepage. You might have got on slightly before we posted them. What is the programming website called? I'm not sure about that one because this is just us running the course on Twitch, so there is no website attached to it. When the 10 weeks pass, can I send the REPL in just one project? Yep, you should just be able to send me your URL and I should be able to just check the 10 lessons that you've done. So can you go over why you added a string to a quote mark? So a string is anything within the quote marks. So without the quote marks, like the word here, that's a variable because it has an equal sign next to it. So if I did this, it wouldn't know what it is. So a string is anything encapsulated within the quote marks. So can you not use VAT equals 20 divided by 100? You can, but then what happens when VAT changes? Because I know it used to be 17.5%, I think. And if you use VAT multiple times, so I'll just show you an example here. So if I use yeah, you could definitely have it like that. It's just, this is the thing about code, you can just have it in multiple different ways. It's up to you, but yeah, that's perfectly fine. And the great thing about storing it in a variable is that if you want to change it at a later point, you only have to change it at this one point rather than having to change it in multiple. When do we send them to you? So if you have any questions about this, if you go to Twitch and you scroll down, check the FAQ section because all these questions are raised here. So when shall we send you our REPLs? At the end of the 10 weeks. We don't need them before. Previously, people have asked if we can use this as part of the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and we are currently looking into how we can extend the course by 2 weeks to meet the 3-month requirement as part of the Duke of Edinburgh. More details will follow, but we are hopeful that you'll be able to. So if this is something you wanted to use for your Duke of Edinburgh, which a few people have raised, then I'm pretty sure we can do that. So can you show us how to do the length and width? Because that is one of the questions. We go through the questions on the Thursday lesson. So right now we're just giving you the opportunity to have a go at them yourselves, but we will be going through them on Thursday if you have any difficulties with them. When I asked double quote, I was asking about when you did a recap of last week, print XXX. So we just printed hello world last week, but again, you can rewind the video if you want to have another look at that. Where do we send it to? So again, you don't need to send anything to us before the 10 weeks. Once the 10 weeks have elapsed, we'll give you a link to send us the REPLs. How do you create a new file in REPL? So if you go to REPL, you can see at the top right, it says plus new REPL. You click that, you click the language, we're doing Python. It'll create for you a URL, which will be random. So that means it's unique to you, and then you just press create REPL. And then it'll create for you a brand new REPL. If you want to see all your REPLs, you go to My REPLs at the left, and also check this unnamed folder because that will also have REPLs in. Is it the end of lessons questions we need to send on REPL at the end of the 10-week course? Yep. So all the questions that we set at the end of the lessons, they're the ones that we'll want at the end of the 10 weeks. How do I save each set of homework questions as different lessons on REPL, and is that all I need to show I've completed the course? Yep, so what you can do is, for example, for this week, you can copy all the questions from our page. You go to REPL, create a new REPL, Python, create this, and then you can just paste it in. And what I do is I would comment them out. So the way you can do that is you highlight all the text that you want to comment out, and you do Command/ on a MacBook or Control/ on a MacBook on a Windows, and it will comment it all out for you. And then underneath is where I start writing my code. So this one, the first thing you have to do is create a variable. So you're going to create a variable of an amount. It says I can't get to the questions, it doesn't let me under the watch. So if that happens, just refresh your screen. You go to a different section and then go to home, refresh it, and then they'll be there. So this question's in, what's a programming website called? That's repl.it. That's where we do all our code while we're using this. Is it okay to make new REPLs every lesson? And how am I going to send you all the URLs? Yep, make a new REPL for every lesson because it's just much easier for you to do it. And at the end, we'll explain how to send the information through. That's fine. Is there a PowerPoint presentation of the course that you can share? So we're looking at putting this onto our website, but currently you can just go through the videos because they'll be there for 14 days, so you can keep going through them as many times as you need to. So how do you change everything in code to comments? So to do that, you highlight it and then you press Command and the slash. So about the REPLs, after the 10 weeks, we'll send you a link to send it to. But before that, you don't need to. Also, these questions are on the FAQ. So any questions about the REPL or when to send it to us, you can look here and you'll find the answer. Okay, so someone's asked, how do you just do a bit of, so if I want to print hello world, so we've got name equals, and then we're going to get an input, and then we're going to ask the question, what is your name? Okay, so one of the questions asked, once asked the user what their name was, how do we print hello in their name? So to do that, we print hello, and then you concatenate with the plus sign, and then their name, and then print goodbye, and their name. Okay, so we're going to run both those. Let's do a last one. We'll do print length name. Okay, so we'll run all these things. So what is your name? Snadju. And it says hello Snadju, goodbye Snadju, and it tells us the length. If I only want to say hello and goodbye to Snadju, I use the hash sign, or the at the start of the line I don't want running, and that will stop that running. So we now only have those. So if you don't want one line to run, you use the hash and it will stop it running. So can you go over the length of names, please? So that's how you do it. You do just put len round name, or you can just do print len and then the name that you want printing. And it gives us the length here. So that's the two ways of doing length. You can either do it via the variable or just printing it straight there. How do you change everything in code to comments? So what do I mean by slash? So that's the command for Macs. That is the command for Windows to highlight this and comment it all out. Is it a problem if I did my exercises without writing the questions, and when the 10 weeks pass, can I send the REPL in a single project? If you want, it's up to you. You'll find out, I think the more we do, the bigger the code gets, and your REPL might be quite slow. So if it was me, I would do it each individual one. I'd create a new REPL, but again, it's up to you. Okay, so I think we've gone through all the questions. So how do you work out the width? So you can either get the user to input a number for you, or you can just make up any number you want. So you can create the width. You can say it's 10, 100, it's up to you. To get the certificate, you have to do all 10 weeks of the questions that we set to you. How do we make our output a little neat? So all our new lines after each question. So that is from lesson 1. If you want to make things neat, you have to use your /n, you have to use your spaces. So if we want to get the name, so as you can see here, I'm going to highlight it all, do command /, it's going to, so here I've put /n, and that makes it nice. It's up to you. You can do /n, you can do spaces. That's how I make mine a bit neater. How do you make a certain part of a string uppercase? So this is where we can use our indexing. So we want to print out name, square brackets, 0, dot upper. And don't forget the brackets at the end for upper. And then it's going to just print out whatever I've asked it to, which was the first letter. I could do -1 for the last letter. And it's going to give me the last letter. I didn't write the questions on my REPL. Is it a problem? No. It's just easier to, when you go back to it, it might be more difficult to see what you've done. But if you're writing comments in, that's fine. Okay, we're 11 o'clock now. Is there any more questions? If there's none in the chat, I'll clear the ones from today. And we can, if you have any more questions during the week, put them on here, and me and Jake will be answering them on Thursday. Okay, no more questions? Brilliant. I shall see you all next week, or on Thursday in fact, to go through the questions. Yep, so on Thursday we will be answering the questions that I've just set. And how will I send you the REPLs? The REPLs, after 10 weeks, we will ask you, we'll give you something to send. Okay, I typed this into Python. VAT equals 400 divided, 40 divided by 100. Let's have a look. Why did it print that? Because 40 divided by 100 is 0.4. So what you've done here is you've just done a bit of maths and you've asked for an answer. So that's why it's printed that. I can't access the questions because I can't scroll down. So you just need to refresh your page. So if you just wait till the lesson is over, close it down, you'll be able to see them. If not, here you go. These are all the questions. So you can just screenshot this page and they're all there for you. Okay, cool. I'll see you all on Thursday. Have a good week.